I'm Dave Cox. I'm your host for today, and I'm pumped to be here. My guest is amazing. Let me introduce him in a moment. But first, let me just talk about a couple of things. He has the enviable role of leading digital marketing for some of Australia's most iconic lifestyle and action sports brands, including Quicksilver, Billabong, Surf, Dive and Ski, and more. Like myself, I bet there's plenty out there who are very excited by that. They grew up with these brands, maybe wearing some of that stuff today. He was voted number 15 in the Inside Retail Top 50 People in E-commerce in 2022. Yay, congratulations. He's a current digital marketing director at Boardriders and all-round great guy. So welcome, Jake Falkinder.
Thanks very much, Dave. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here, and that's a very lovely wrap-up. Really appreciate that.
As you can tell, guys, we're here on the beautiful Gold Coast, and we're actually recording this live in front of an audience here, so if you hear some noise in the background, it's just people enjoying what's happening. But first, let's kick off. I reckon you've got a couple of cracking stories, maybe in Abu Dhabi, of all places.
It is an interesting place to start. Not sure if it's on everyone's bucket list to go and work in Abu Dhabi. Back in the day when a lot of people were planning travel to London or wherever it might be, I decided I was pretty afraid of cold weather and avoided London at all. I love Europe and I love travel. But I decided to look elsewhere, and it took me to the deserts of the United Arab Emirates and into a lovely place called Abu Dhabi, which is where I really had a pretty monumental step in my career, I guess. I actually felt at that time I was like, my career is peaking and I'm in my mid to late 20s, where to from here?
So more than a defining moment, you're like, this is it.
This is it.
This is it.
Literally where to. And I guess to shed a bit of light on that, there are a few instances where I just looked around and pinched myself. I guess before I touch on those, how I got to Abu Dhabi was part of a sister agency city agreement with Abu Dhabi and Brisbane at the time. So the doors are open to open up a bit more commerce between the two cities. And I guess they had a bit in common in terms of there was the flagship city of Australia. A lot of commerce either happens in Sydney or Melbourne, and Brisbane always, it's in the next sentence or the next breath. I think Abu Dhabi felt quite similar to that at the time. Everything, there was flashing lights and the glitz and glamour in Dubai. So it made sense to me that they were sister cities. Living in Brisbane at the time and having the opportunity to go to Abu Dhabi, I already felt a bit of a connection with the place because of their stature within the country. And I was just fortunate to be working for a digital agency, humble agency named JSA Digital. Essentially what happened there, I walked in the door, recommended by a guy who I was having lunch with when I worked next door at Virgin Blue, who said, you should go and meet the MD. If you like the sound of agency stuff, you should go and meet the MD. So I literally walked in after lunch. I was still wiping a bit of my sandwich off my face and just went, I've just been interested to know what you guys do. Talk me through it. We got chatting over a number of weeks, and it turned out they were setting up shop in Abu Dhabi. And they literally gave me a bit of a different kind of probation. It was if you pass the first month of probation here and you like the sound of what's going on over there, you can go over there and lead the show.
Yeah, amazing.
And I was just fortunate.
Right place, right time.
I guess the message there, when I think back, was I was bold enough to be curious. I didn't have to walk in the door and say g'day. Yeah. And I did. I really thanked myself for it. And then I continued to push myself while I was in Abu Dhabi and, from then on in, to unlock other opportunities. So I ended up in Abu Dhabi. It was very different then. I don't know if anyone at the table here has been before. I'm getting a few nods and also a few shakes of the head. So culturally, it's obviously a very different part of the world. So it took me a bit of adjusting. Things like getting a signed contract that I didn't know that didn't happen over there until I slid a contract across the table and said, let's do business. I'm going to design a website for you.
Yep.
And they said, essentially, if God wills it, it will happen. I didn't know what to do next. I called my business partners in Brisbane and went, I've got a contract and it's approved, but I can't send it back to you.
Yeah, there's no signature on it.
Yeah. So things like that. And that turned out fine. Every job subsequently was pretty much a similar kind of conversation. But just really early in the piece, I probably struggled to get my head around it a bit. But once I settled in, great place, great opportunities. We worked on the Abu Dhabi F1, the setup of the Louvre and Guggenheim museums, Tiger Woods golf courses. When I say I thought I'd peaked pretty early, when you start talking about these names, sitting trackside at the F1 with literally on Richard Branson's yacht with Hollywood celebs next door.
No way.
I definitely felt I'd peaked pretty early and wasn't really sure where to from there. So when the GFC hit and the cranes started coming down, I was riding that high of being in yachts. I had dinner with Kings of Leon one night with Richard Branson. Just all of these obscure things I never thought would happen. Really high highs. And then watching literally, it was like a metaphor of everything that had happened over those 2 years. The crane started coming down. You name a sports car, it was sitting there collecting dust near the airport or in our apartment block where we were living. And I just was like, it's literally crumbling in front of our eyes. So it was such an amazing experience, but really humbling for it to finish that way as well.
Yeah, I really love how you started that by saying like you're bold enough to be curious, and that's what kicked all of this off. So that's really cool. And then off the back of that, like you took action. So you actually took that action. You were curious about what's going on over there. You took that action. You saw that synergy between Brisbane, your home city at that time, and Abu Dhabi. So there was a lot of synergies. But yeah, good on you for doing that. And look,
Thank you.
I'd like to just go back a little bit. I'm sure your career in digital advertising started earlier than that. Can you just like talk to us a little bit about that? Like, how did you encounter digital advertising?
Yeah, way less shiny, this story, but I studied at the University of Queensland. I actually started, as a side note, doing an engineering degree because I wanted to live near the beach and I heard that coastal engineering was a thing. I was gobsmacked by the amount of chemistry and whatnot within that course and just ran for the hills. So I ended up doing a computer science degree there, learnt to build a few websites, and just, you might call it a side hustle or something now, but I literally just wanted to get free t-shirts, so I started a blog reviewing t-shirts. It was built on WordPress. I tirelessly crafted every pixel, the logo, everything. It was just a bit of a love project. And I think that started to be conveyed to, the people that started to become involved around this community that was forming. Long story short, I ended up with 300 or 400 t-shirts in my wardrobe from Sweden and Romania, designers all over the world sending me these t-shirts to, literally to the point I couldn't fit anymore. I didn't wear most of these t-shirts. I couldn't fit them in my cupboard. The people at the Salvos knew me by my first name because I'd given a nice fresh batch of them. I tried to sell a couple at some stage because I thought there is something in here about some sort of enterprise and online business. Couldn't sell them because people just didn't understand a random t-shirt from the other side of the world. Then one day, a guy, he would have been from the US, emailed me and said, I'll buy a link from your website. I was like, this is weird. I've never heard anyone that's willing to part with, let alone $10. This guy was talking a fair bit more than that, just for literally a simple link in the footer of the website.
Yeah, like so a paid placement, advertising placement. Yep.
So it was my first paid placement. Obviously a bit of an SEO play for this guy.
Yeah.
But it literally snowballed from there. So I sold more links. I sold, I guess, what we'd call now native content, sponsored posts, sponsored articles, display.
You were getting paid on an affiliate model. Was that a
lot of it at that stage
or?
was like your premium placement kind of model. So I would literally name a price. It was in US dollars, even better.
Yeah.
And test the waters.
So like a tenancy thing. Yeah. What we'd call that today.
And yeah, premium environments back then were really, you could call the premium. There was no programmatic, so you couldn't just chance your way through the Google Display Network or something onto the site. You had to pay your way to get there. So that introduced me to the world of digital advertising. It was cool to be on the receiving end, but I then started to apply those principles in subsequent roles in terms of monetizing digital assets for publishers, and then eventually, obviously, flipping into the brand side and actually buying that inventory from publishers.
Amazing. So just like taking that a step further, so it was like a content play for that advertiser. So like that you have an audience, you've got a site, you have an audience, you're looking to monetize that audience, although you probably didn't realize that at the time. And then that advertiser is wanting to access that audience. Okay, so that makes perfect sense in that what is now known as performance marketing or affiliate marketing. Funny how that goes. Rolling into, let's get to Boardriders, like massive organisation. Those that don't know, that's like an umbrella organisation with a bunch of iconic surf brands underneath.
Yep, that's right.
Also, so you've got like Quicksilver, Billabong, Roxy. Then you've got some from overseas like DC Shoes, RVCA,
Elements.
And you sit across digital marketing for all of those brands. Right. Yeah, cool. Yep. Okay, so couple of questions here. Answer this however you want,
no worries.
in whatever order. When the big C happened, so coronavirus hit the world. How did that change things for you? And I'd also love to know around your split between brand. Because these are really brand-heavy brands, but like very commerce-driven as well. So like your split with your team and your focus between building brand and driving sales.
Just to recap on what you've said there, certainly I'm the luckiest guy in the world in terms of the job I have. Like the content that I work with every day is just amazing. I'm looking at the most enviable surf destinations, skate destinations, snowboarding destinations with athletes that rival Michael Jordan. We're talking Kelly Slater they're referring to Michael Jordan as the Kelly Slater of basketball in some sentences now. So it's just been so delightful to see these sports come into the mainstream with the Olympics and the evolution of wave pools and just accepted sports that are all about expression being accepted as the mainstream. So I guess that's the first thing. It's just so humbling to have worked through these things. I've mentioned the cranes coming down and these other pivotal moments in my career to then land in what I feel like is the thing I have the most affinity, which is esports and supporting them. So really that's everything we're about is supporting these sports. We're the namesake of some of these sports in terms of we're the biggest brands in the world supporting these sports and we're what drives their evolution and keeps them alive. We need to keep sponsoring the surf contests. There's one running in Bells at the moment. Yeah, I don't know what the latest update on that one is. It's a really vested community of people that I'm working with that are all very passionate. So as a result, a lot of the content that we get already reflects that. So our team and the team that I lead is essentially what I would call an internal agency. We consult every brand and we consult in terms of the best way to syndicate content or present content or find an audience with the content that they've created. So we're consulting on those kind of things and we're also looking at emerging technologies. I was talking about TikTok being an emerging technology last year, but it's pretty much here to stay now by the look of things. So I would say we really play a split role in terms of how we work with brand and how we work with more of the performance side of things. Mm-hmm. Certainly we've got metrics around performance. I think every business has those metrics. And I think when we talk about the big C, it's certainly escalated some of those metrics. So when we're particularly looking at things from an e-com point of view, we saw conversion rates climb. We saw the mix across purchasing behaviours from retail environments to e-com really take flight at a rapid. So I don't think it's anything that anyone would see differently in any other industry during those times when we had increased lockdowns. But I guess the cool thing that I noticed, I don't know if it was cool or not, but the water was busier than I'd ever seen it during lockdowns. People were wearing new wetsuits, they were buying new boards, their kids were learning to skate in the skate parks for the first time because they didn't have to go to school and their lunch break could be something. And that had a snowball effect on our industry and many others. I actually think last year people became more active than they have been for probably the last 5 or 6 years prior to that. And it's benefited brands, but hopefully it's brought us together a bit more as well.
And I love what you're saying about passion and then you having the affinity with the space and finally getting and now working in that space and seeing the evolution of what's going on there. And then the other thing I picked up on is you spoke about content driven. So a lot of what you're doing is content driven. So I imagine video would feature quite heavily in what you're running.
If you can't get in the water, probably the second best thing is to sit down and scroll through a few videos of what you'd hope to be doing or what you hope that you look like when you're in the water. Yeah, it's the Red Bull philosophy of content-led marketing leads to discussion about the product eventually. Yeah. And we're just, like I said before, really fortunate that the content that we've got there is highly watchable and generally pretty engaging.
Thanks so much, Jake. Super entertaining, engaging. And just like those three things that we brought up before. So you're talking about be bold enough to be curious. I love that. You just dove straight in and look where it's taking you now. Passion and affinity with what you're doing.